Hello, everyone, and welcome to Panther Pretty Express. I'm your host, Jacob Langsam. Here with me, as always, are my co-hosts, TJ Peterson and Alex Lopez. And there are some very interesting trade rumors that may or may not impact the Florida Panthers. It was recently reported by The Athletic that Matthew Tkachuck does not want to sign a long-term deal with the Calgary Flames and is seeking a trade. The rumor is that the preferred destinations include St. Louis, Florida, Dallas, Nashville,
Las Vegas,
and I've seen some reports that also include the Rangers and the Devils. So those first five are really the five that I've seen the heaviest links to.
This is the offseason.
The Panthers need to be all in on this.
This is the offseason of the American player wanting to go to the U.S. and
this is the offseason of the American winger who plays for the Calgary Flames.
Right.
Wanting to go to the U.S.
The stampede clearly isn't that great because these guys are running away and they don't want to stick around for it. But yeah, I mean, Matthew Tkachuck is one of the best players that's been available since Johnny Gaudreau. But, you know, other than that, one of the best players that's been available in a very long time. No, but I mean, it's true. Like, Johnny Gaudreau is on that level as well. But other than that, I mean, I guess since Artemi Panarin, that was the last time a player like this was truly available. And, you know, it's honestly even better than that for the Panthers because he's making his market pretty limited, and they're one of the few teams that are in it. Now, it's obvious that there's some cap gymnastics to do here for the Panthers to be able to sign him because that number is not going to be a small number. That's going to be a big number. We're looking at an 8-year deal. Probably the Mark Stone deal would be my guess. You're looking at 9.5, maybe even 9.75 like Johnny Gaudreau, again, times 8 for a Matthew Tkachuck extension. And that's not even talking about the trade. And we're kind of playing around with it in terms of what the Panthers would need to do to fit in Tkachuck to their cap space. And presuming that he's not going to take a 1-year bridge deal at like $5 million or something like that to facilitate the cap, they're going to have to trade multiple players, one of which we're assuming is Patrick Hornquist because his cap hit does not meet his on-ice performance. Now, Mackenzie Weegar's name has been in trade rumors throughout the offseason, but even if you added his salary to Patrick Hornquist's salary and shipped both of them out, you still have to get rid of one more contract. And I went ahead and just went under the assumption that those rumors are the most plausible. They'll move Patrick Hornquist, they'll move Weegar, and I went with Radko Gudas as the other piece that needed to be moved out in order to make the money work. So I have a mock trade, and I guess I'll edit the video so that everybody can see it. But basically, the Panthers would be getting Tkachuck, obviously, and Artem Zub retained by Ottawa. So it's a 3-team trade with Ottawa getting Mackenzie Weegar, as they've long been rumored to want, along with Gudas, and then Calgary gets a bunch of bad contracts, Zaitsev, Hornquist, as well as Anton Lundell, and a couple of Ottawa prospects. I had them getting Eric Brandstrom and Lassie Thompson, I believe. So that's just my mock trade proposal. It was really the path of least resistance to this being plausible, in my opinion. What would you guys think about that?
Let me jump in first on this. Honestly, I think you're overvaluing how much leverage Calgary has here. We're in a situation where they have basically two options. They have the smart option, which it seems they are intent on doing, is you trade him now or they keep him for his last year under contract and he's a UFA and they lose him for nothing, just like they lost Johnny Gaudreau. So they are smartly not making the same mistake twice, even though I wouldn't call Gaudreau a mistake because they had a shot to win a cup and they took it and used Gaudreau essentially as a self-rental. It didn't work. He's gone, but they're not a cup contender anymore. They're moving him. Matthew Tkachuck can pick his next destination. Now, the obvious location for him is St. Louis. That's where his dad played. It's long been rumored both him and his brother Brady would love to play for his dad's old team, even though Keith played him for multiple teams. St. Louis is quote-unquote home. So I don't think they need to trade Anton Lundell. I don't think it costs that much. The issue becomes, what do the Panthers have other than Lundell that would entice Calgary? And then the other issue that I have with your trade, no offense, TJ, is when was the last time we saw NHL GMs creative enough to pull off this kind of 3-team deal?
Yeah, I can't think of any examples.
I mean, we've seen it at the deadline where teams will do a 3, like the Panthers were involved in one where they retained some of Max Domi's contract in exchange for a small, a 5th-round pick or something like that on Domi's way to Carolina. Those kind of 3-team deals we've seen. But we haven't seen one where, like, you see these deals in baseball all the time.
Yeah.
Where one team,
the NBA.
Right, where one team needs prospects and the other team needs a player, and you send a player to one team, that team sends prospects to the other, and everyone's kind of happy. And that's kind of the only way this would work if you're a Panthers fan, is because they, the other people they could essentially trade to Calgary that Calgary may want, Jonathan Huberdeau, there's no get. It's the same situation. It's a guy in the last year of his deal that is unlikely to sign. If Jonathan Huberdeau is going to leave the Florida Panthers,
he's going to Montreal.
It's to go back to he's going to Montreal. So if the Panthers were to trade Jonathan Huberdeau this offseason, he's not going to re-up with the team unless he goes somewhere and wins a cup and falls in love. But Jonathan Huberdeau is going to go to Montreal. So you can't trade Huberdeau here. I mean, I guess in theory you could do some sort of 3-team deal that ends up with Montreal getting Huberdeau and the Panthers getting Tkachuk. But any way you do those machinations, like, it's difficult and it requires a 3-team deal.
Yeah, and I would hesitate to move Huberdeau because of his meaning to the franchise. And I honestly think that Montreal wouldn't really make you a big offer for Jonathan Huberdeau, despite the fact that they're a francophone franchise that really covets Quebec-born players. They just wouldn't go after a 28-year-old like that super aggressively unless it was in free agency when they don't have to give up any assets. And like you said, the question then becomes, if it's not Lundell, and let's put Knight in the same category as Lundell, where you don't want to give up one of those guys, there's a huge gap between those two and then the other, like, futures, quote-unquote, that you could give up to another team, because the Panthers don't have first-round picks in the next 2 drafts. And their top prospect right now is probably Mackie Samoskevich, who I haven't really seen in any very high in any prospect rankings. I mean, he had a fine season in Michigan, but it wasn't like a Kyle Connor season. It wasn't like a point per game, lighting up the scoreboard. And he'll probably get more opportunity this upcoming season. But the reason that I went with Lundell is just that it's the path of least resistance, like I said. I think one way that you could get a little bit of value back from Florida in the trade is if you take out Uyghur and you replace him with Montour, because I feel like the Senators would still be interested in Montour, and then you're not having to give up.
I doubt it. I disagree with you very strongly. I don't think the Sens would give a shit about Montour.
Well, they have to get somebody.
The Sens
they have to get somebody. Their defense is just not that good.
Right. I agree with you. I don't think they would care in the least about Brandon Montour.
And it would really just be like a way that the Panthers move the money. It would be kind of like that Connor Brown trade that they just made, where they got like a draft pick back. It would be
right, but why is Ottawa even involved then in a 3-team deal if they're not getting Mackenzie Weegar?
Right,
because they want a defenseman.
Right, they want Weegar.
Right, they
Montour
want Weegar. They want
Weegar.
a top. They want a top 4 guy. They need a top 4 guy. Montour is not a top 4 guy. Montour is a 5. He's a very good number 5, number 6, but he's just more of what Ottawa already has too much of. So if it's not Weegar to Ottawa, I don't see how any way Ottawa could be involved in a Tkachuk deal.
As loudly as I've been banging the drum for you don't trade Mackenzie Weegar, the caveat that I've always added is you don't trade Mackenzie Weegar unless the return makes you better now. Matthew Tkachuck makes you better now.
Mm-hmm.
And also better in the future.
So then another thing that you could potentially do is trade one of Sam Reinhart or Sam Bennett. I don't think they're going to be that interested in trading for Hailey or Duclair's on LTIR. So.
How funny would it be if the Flames somehow ended up with Sam Bennett and the Panthers got Matthew Tkachuck?
It would be.
I mean, that would be really funny.
I would walk back every single criticism I made of that trade on the spot if we somehow bail on Sam Bennett in a trade that ends up with the Panthers having Matthew Tkachuck. Being able to turn the second and Emil, whatever his name is, into Matthew Tkachuck. Yeah. Thank you.
Honestly, and you kind of said it, I was going to go there. Reinhart, I think, is the obvious play here. He's got 2 years of control.
Good.
He is, but
he's not as good as Tkachuck. Yeah, that's true.
I think the way the Panthers get involved here is Sam Reinhart is $6.5 million. So you'd still need to clear some money. Like you need to trade Gudas or Montour at some point. But like, there's most of the money you need. Well,
Reinhart and Hornquist would that would be enough.
Yeah. Well,
and then you get
the thing is Hornquist is not going to Canada. Like Hornquist has like.
Here was
Hornquist
my thinking
got an 18 no trade clause.
He has a 8-team no list, like you were saying, and I'm sorry that I interrupted you. My thinking was that there's a possibility that Calgary is not on it because they were good last year, and he has to submit the list on the day that free agency opens. Sweden. And he's probably thinking that day that Calgary is going to be a good team. So he's probably got Winnipeg on there. He's probably got Montreal on there. He's probably got Ottawa
Montreal,
on there.
Ottawa, and Winnipeg. Yeah.
But he might not have Calgary on there because Calgary was really good last year.
Yeah, but remember, these guys, like, they pay attention to the things like the taxes and whatnot, and there's a reason why team players aren't signing in Canada right now. And, you know, I'm not trying to make this political, but because Canada's a lot stricter on COVID, guys don't want to be there. I'm telling you, I would be shocked if all of the Canadian teams weren't on Hornquist's no trade list.
I wouldn't be shocked. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if that was the case, but I'm definitely leaving it open that he was like, and you know, they have Elias Lindholm too. Isn't he Swedish?
Yes.
So that's a guy that he could.
And I think Mikael Backlund is too.
Yeah, he's definitely Swedish.
He could be Finnish, maybe not.
Oh no, you're right. He is Finnish.
I would also say, though, Alex, if you're going to bring COVID into it, my understanding is that Alberta is a lot more lax than the other provinces.
That's my understanding as well. And the taxes are lower. I think that Calgary has the lowest Canadian taxes. It's lower than a lot of states in the U.S. even.
That's fine. I mean, I don't want to get too far in the weeds of will Hornquist waive for Calgary. But yeah, essentially Hornquist...
Or is Calgary not on his list in the first place?
Right. Either way. Hornquist and Reinhart is the money you need for
Tkachuck.
The issue, and it also, like, I'm against. I think you make the team better if you trade Tkachuck for Uyghur, but at the same time, I think you almost have too much offensive.
Yeah.
Like, you would need. Like, let's say Uyghur is in the Tkachuck trade, you then need to turn around and trade either Sam Reinhart, Sam Bennett, or Carter Verhaeghe for a top pairing defensive replacement.
First of all, you're not trading Verhaeghe.
I understand you're not.
The production that Verhaeghe brings for his contract, he is a near untouchable.
I completely agree. I am just saying you cannot trade Uyghur for Tkachuck and then roll it out there
because the defense as it is, yeah.
And then, like you were saying, you would need to trade Montour or Gudas.
Although, hold on, let's think about this for a second. Forsling, Ekblad, Gudas, Montour.
That's an ugly second pairing.
That's a rough second pairing.
Yeah,
that's a rough second pairing.
Just
Montour.
Just do Lucas Carlson on the second pairing. He'll fix everything.
Yeah,
true.
But
Carlson, Kierstead, second pairing.
Yeah.
Either way, like, it's exciting to see the Florida Panthers as a preferred trade destination for a high-profile player.
Yeah.
Like, this didn't happen 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And he's
like the last time
24 years old. That's why we're talking about like potentially moving out some of these other guys like Reinhart and Tkachuck. I think they're pretty similar on pretty similar levels. Don't you think you would say that? And at the time that contract was signed,
no.
I think Tkachuck is better.
Well, yeah, Tkachuck is definitely better.
Matthew Tkachuck is the optimized version of what Sam Reinhart is.
And this is not saying Sam Reinhart's a bad player. He was a point-per-game player that gave you plus defense.
What I'm saying that they're on similar levels. What I'm saying is that Tkachuck is not in a totally different stratosphere. Reinhardt's close to him. Not necessarily at his level, but like...
Reinhardt's a borderline all-star. Tkachuck is going to be an all-star for almost every year of his prime.
Unless he plays in the Atlantic Division.
Yeah, that was the issue.
Or plays for the Panthers, because then, you never... Oh, I guess next year the Panthers get a bunch of all-stars, but other than that...
And here's another reason why that would work, and I'm kind of kicking myself for not thinking of that right away. Sam Reinhardt's a Western Canada guy, isn't he? He's from Vancouver, I believe.
I don't know.
He's from the Vancouver area.
That sounds right, but I don't know.
So, and, he'd probably be willing to stay. I doubt that they're going to really blow it up. Like, they would want Lundell because,
I don't know if I
wouldn't want Lundell, but
honestly, and we don't have to go too deep.
NHL teams don't do it though.
If you lose
they
Gaudreau
don't blow
and
it up.
Tkachuck in the same offseason,
they don't blow it up. They just like what?
What do you call what Chicago's doing right now?
An anomaly.
Now?
Like that's why it's so shocking.
Yeah, that was a forced rebuild. It was a forced rebuild,
and also they don't have a good arena situation right now. The ownership is trying to get a new arena, and trying to get the taxpayer money in that. And, we could talk about how we don't approve of stuff like that, but whatever. That's not what this video is about. So I really doubt, even though it might be the smart thing to do in terms of improving their chances of winning the Stanley Cup in the next 50 years, I really doubt they're going to blow it up. I really do. So Sam Reinhart's a guy that he's under contract for the next 2 years, and he's got a better chance of staying because if he was to pull a Johnny Gaudreau and wanting to go closer to home, well, he's already close to home because he's a Western Canada guy.
Sure. I guess details aside, the point of all of this is to say that the Panthers should absolutely be in on Matthew Tkachuck, and there are very few names on the Panthers roster that would be a non-starter in those talks.
So let me just clarify one thing, and we don't have to spend too much time on this. Are you just taking Anton Lundell off the table? Like they say Lundell and you say no?
It would hurt. No, I think I would drop Lundell for Matthew Tkachuck. It would hurt. But I don't think it's I don't think Lundell's not a non-starter. The non-starters to me are Barkov, Ekblad, and Spencer Knight.
Interesting about Spencer Knight, but I don't think we should dive into that. Alex?
I don't necessarily disagree. Well, the thing is, they wouldn't want Spencer Knight anyway. They got Markstrom.
And they also have Dustin Wolf.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, I like Dustin Wolf a lot.
I don't disagree. There's very few untouchables. If push comes to shove, and it does get to be Lundell or bust, I would say yes. But I really don't think there's going to be enough leverage. I mean, the reality is...
You close your eyes as you pull the trigger, but you still pull that trigger.
Right, but this is going to come down to where Tkachuck wants to go, and the reality is he's probably just going to want to go to St. Louis.
Well, if he has a list, then he wants to
go to those other teams.
There's something about Florida that he wants to pursue, for sure.
Yeah, but I'm just like, everyone puts out a list. Like, Durant has multiple teams he's willing to go to, but I mean, it's kind of an unknown. It's a known, unspoken thing that it's
Miami or Phoenix.
Yeah, Miami or Phoenix. Like, there's other teams he's willing to look at, but it's Miami or Phoenix. And I would
Isn't that
assume
what Jimmy Butler did when he left Minnesota? Also, didn't he basically say like, "I want to go play with Joel Embiid"?
Yes, like there were multiple. Like the Heat were a team that was involved when he left Minnesota, but it was no. He wanted to go try it with Embiid, and that's where he ended up. And Tkachuck has that same leverage here. So I would assume he wants to go to St. Louis, but until that happens, we'll see. The other thing you do have to keep in mind with an acquisition of Tkachuck is it possibly costs you Huberdeau next season because, depending on who you send out, I don't know how you keep everyone.
Yeah, and Uyghur at the same time.
That is also a situation in which you close your eyes as you pull the trigger.
Yeah. I've long said that I'm not excited for the
Tkachuck
Huberdeau
is just
extension. Right now 5.9.
Prime Tkachuk is going to be better than 30-something-year-old Huberdeau. I'm sorry.
You're going to see that decline.
I love Jonathan Huberdeau. He is one of the faces of this franchise. But Matthew Tkachuk in his mid-20s is going to be a much more desirable player than early to mid-30s Jonathan Huberdeau.
Mm-hmm. We can worry about next year's cap after a trade is potentially announced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But, I don't think you don't try to trade for Matthew Tkachuk because it might cost you Jonathan Huberdeau as a free agent.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think that
it would hurt, but 5 years from now, when you have a cup, when Matthew Tkachuk's name is under the Florida Panthers Stanley Cup, you nod your head. You pat yourself on the back, you build the statue of Bill Zito, and you wish Jonathan
I will
well.
wrap up this video by saying, if you look at the two teams that made the Stanley Cup Finals, the last three teams that won the Stanley Cup, it's basically stars and scrubs. Stars and minimum contracts. That's how you win. So it hurts to get rid of the nice guys in the middle. But, you win with Makar, you win with McKinnon, you win with Kucherov, you win with Hedman, Vasilevsky. And that'll do it for Panther Paris Express. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll try to do a few more of these videos as news comes along that warrants it. And let us know if you like it. Rate us 5 stars on Apple Music.
On YouTube. We'll keep this one serious.
Rate us 5 stars on YouTube. Subscribe.
Since it's going on YouTube, rate us 5 stars on YouTube. Is that even a thing anymore? I don't think it is. Like us on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe.
Exactly.